What if I told you that by learning just one word a day, you could live longer? And not just longer, but better. Sounds unbelievable, right? That brain health could be reduced to a single word. But after having spent my entire life learning languages, I want to let you in the most valuable and effective hack I have learned. One word a day keeps the doctor away. That is because every time that we learn a new word, we're using neuroplasticity to build what scientists call cognitive reserve. So let's try it right now. Let's learn a new word right now. I want you to remember a moment in which you were looking at someone directly in their eyes. Adrenaline is rushing through your body, your heart is beating, and it's inexplicable, but you know the other person feels the same as you. And yet neither of you dares to take that first step. And for those few seconds, the world simply stops. Now here's a challenge. I want you to describe this moment using only one word. I had a hard time thinking of this myself. I thought of waiting, longing, desire, but none of them quite fit. Until finally, I found it. A word from the extinct Yamana language, from the southernmost tip of Argentina. Mami la panita pai. Quite a tongue twister, I know. You should try it later at home. Mami la panita pai. And it means that shared look between two people who both want the same thing, but neither dares to take that first step. And in learning this word right here, right now, you have done something much more powerful and important for your health than you can imagine. You have just lowered your risk of brain damage. Because by learning this word, you have just renamed a memory that you already had, that isn't waiting anymore. It's Mami la panita pai. We have just built neuroplasticity and cognitive reserve, one word at a time. I have been building this my entire life. I just didn't know it then, like many of you. I'm a polyglot, which means I have spent my entire life learning words and languages. And many people, when they hear that fact, they are very impressed. And the first thing that they tell me is, how did you do it? You're so gifted. And I'm not. It was a lot of hard work. And it was because my brain had to go through a series of changes that forced it to have to adapt. I was born in Argentina to an Argentine mother and an Indian father. And although Spanish is my mother tongue, I went to an Italian school. I know you're thinking, why? It's not like I needed a hobby as a first grader, but because I needed to be able to communicate to my Italian grandparents. And then everything gets very complicated. I moved to Germany. All of a sudden, I had to go to an international school in English, learn German as a second language, and also learn French as a third language. I know, God forbid, middle schoolers should only be speaking in one language. We kind of have that. I don't know if you remember being 11 years old, but I was scared, young, and all of a sudden, not only did I need to adapt to an entirely new culture, very different than mine, but I had to learn 3 languages at once. And although at the time I hated my parents for forcing me to speak so many languages, today I'm incredibly grateful because I've been able to see the life-changing effects and powers of learning languages. And even today, as I moved to the Netherlands, I have decided to learn Dutch. This time, not because I needed to, there was no parent forcing me, but because I wanted to. Because I've realized, and I'm very grateful about what these languages can do. And I want to share with you the main 3 life-changing lessons that I learned from learning languages. The first one is that learning new words is a physical exercise. It is a biological experience. Whenever we learn words, we're using vast amounts of energy, and actually our heart rate changes as we learn a different language or speak it. And much like going to the gym keeps us active and healthy, learning new words keeps our brain active and healthy. It's good news for those of us who are not good athletes like myself. The second thing I learned is that learning new words increased my connectivity. I realized back when I was in Germany that I couldn't afford to wait for fluency. I had to make friends, incorporate into a new society, actually pass 6th grade. And so I needed to connect everything that was around me. I needed to start learning every word immediately and start using it. And that's when I realized that by consistently learning one word, whether it was from a TV show, a conversation at school, or from a friend, I was connecting my thoughts, feelings, and experiences, my memories, all together. And within 6 months, something incredible happened. My brain had caught up, and I could speak. Today, I can start a sentence in English, then in Frank het Nederlands stellen, und antworten sie mit deutscher Präzision. Que me c'est le mejor del mundo. Ou changer complètement de sujet et parler d'amour. And if everything else fails, finire con le mani in italiano, ma come? That is neuroplasticity in action. My brain stopped seeing 6 different boxes and started seeing one giant interconnected web. And if you were able to catch anything that I just said, then kudos to you. Because Dr. Lera Borodinski in Columbia and Stanford research has found that a wider vocabulary alone gives you a faster reaction to the world around you. That's right, words act as mental shortcuts. And the more words we have, the more vocabulary we build, we're not just adding definitions, we're reacting to the world with greater speed. And that leads me to my third lesson that I want to share with you today. Learning new words opens our minds. To me, every time I learn a new language was like having a new superpower, a new pair of glasses that allow me to see, hear, and feel the world differently. It felt like meeting a new voice within me, one that grew richer by every recipe I could now read, every song I could now listen to, and every conversation I could now join. I fell in love with that magical moment in which words start stringing together, and all of a sudden you're not just translating anymore, you're communicating your ideas. And that's because learning new words actually changes the way we perceive the world. It makes us think differently. I learned from Italians that it is not enough to wish you good night. They wish you sogni d'oro, golden dreams. That in Dutch a room isn't just warm, it's gezellig, cozy, comforting, soothing, intimate, like a glass of wine on a warm evening. And the first time that I heard a German say Fernweh, I realized I don't just want to go traveling. They feel a physical pain to escape their daily lives. Put in far better words that I could fathom myself, Ludwig Wittgenstein says, the limits of my language are the limits of my world. And today, as I study law, I have realized that all of these words and languages I have been learning for years are much more than a trick to impress an audience. They have allowed me to connect subjects that are not even about languages. Computer science, business. It allowed me, even as a first-year student, to get a job as chief of staff at a technology firm, a field completely different than mine. So how does this work? How do we start connecting all of this better? Well, Dr. Jakob Stern, a cognitive neuroscientist, explains that this happens because of neuroplasticity and cognitive reserve. Neuroplasticity is those connections, those paths that we build, and cognitive reserve keeps us from aging because we have built those paths. Now, these are difficult concepts, and I'm not a neuroscientist myself, so I like to think of it as a place that I frequent a lot. Probably most students frequent a lot, particularly during exam seasons. Yes, of course. I mean the library. Duh. So let's imagine our mind as an immense library, maybe as big as this theater, with countless aisles and books. Each of those books in your mind is a memory. And you are the librarian of your internal library. Every time that you get a new book, you get a new memory, you search for a word that will describe it. You give it a title. Some we call pain, some we call joy, some we call drunk and disorderly. Those are ones we make after we leave the library, of course. But here's the trick. Whenever you're building each of these words, whenever you're learning these words, you're actually creating a new path within your internal library. You're not only learning vocabulary, you're able to find that memory better because you've just added it to a new title. Let's think back to our word of the day, mami la panita pie. Before today, that memory only had one word, desire, waiting. Today you have another word, mami la panita pie. And in creating those two paths, you've just made your library more interconnected. And this will allow you to stay healthier longer. Because whenever one of those paths is broken or damaged, you will always have a new one. That is neuroplasticity, our brain's ability to form these new paths within our internal library, and cognitive reserve, finding an alternative way to finding that memory. In fact, Dr. Jakob Stern makes his research specifically about Alzheimer's, and he has explained that two patients that suffer from Alzheimer's will have different symptoms based on their cognitive reserve. One that has a greater cognitive reserve will actually be symptomatic-free much longer. And the reason for that is because whenever memory starts to fail, whenever those paths start to get damaged, they will simply root around the damage, find another path. One word can do all of that. But what happens when words are missing, when our glossary is too limited? Well, we're creating less paths. Our library becomes chaotic. There's less ways to find that information, and we take longer to find what we mean, to remember the information that is important. Words, simply put, are health. They keep us healthy, they keep us sharp. Of course, it is not a magical cure. It is not always fast, it is not always easy, but evidence is clear. Learning even one word a day can keep you healthy, agile, flexible, and protect your health for years to come. It seems like a small addition, almost invisible, but in 1 year, that's 365 new words. In 5 years, that's 1,800 new paths within your internal library. Quiet, cumulative, powerful growth. So today, I want to leave you with a challenge. No matter how stressful your lives get, how much work you need to do, how much homework you need to get done, please stay curious. Think about diving into a new language, watching a foreign film, go traveling and ask how to say thank you, how to say goodbye. Keep asking what the meaning of words are to friends, to anyone that you know. Because in doing this, you're protecting your health. I know I have been, and I'm sure you can as well. And I want you to start with something simple, something possible for each one of you in this room today. 1 word a day. Because 1 word a day keeps the doctor away.